The must-have apps for traveling China in 2026. To be honest, I haven't really seen any of this advice online, so I thought I'd just sit down and in my plain brand new office, just talk you through the 7 apps you need to travel China. Okay, I've got a list in front of me. Let's walk through it. The first one, Alipay. So personally, I like to use Alipay for payments, and you'll also use Alipay for riding the subway. You do need to know that when you're going to different Chinese cities, you need to change what city you're in because the subway like ticketing QR code system is different. In the major cities like Beijing, Shanghai, you can just tap your credit card or debit card using Apple Pay. But in smaller cities, for example, Wuhan, the systems don't allow for like tap and go. So you need to use Alipay to ride the subway. And my general advice for riding the subway or general transport in China is definitely get or check the subway when you're going from place to place. Especially for me, I've lived in Beijing. I would often opt for the subway because it's just quicker than getting a Didi. Okay, so Alipay, main payment provider, and then also riding the subway. You might also need to pay some people like your tour guides and that they might send you a QR code on Alipay. And I find that Alipay is better for accepting international cards as opposed to paying Chinese people on WeChat. Okay, that gets me to WeChat. WeChat is like the be-all end-all in China, so you'll need to download WeChat before you go. With Alipay and WeChat, I would recommend to verify yourself using your passport and also add a few different international cards in there. Okay, using your passport or verifying using your passport will give you elevated spending levels, which you will need while you're in China. For WeChat, you might get people adding you. So if you're using tour guides, they might opt to add you on WeChat. It's like the messaging platform on China. And then also the great thing about WeChat is it has a series of mini programs. So we're going to talk about Dianping later in this video, but WeChat has a built-in translation function, which is going to be really helpful when you're trying to use apps like Meituan for food delivery and you want to translate. Because if you can't read Chinese characters, some of the native apps are difficult. Okay, so WeChat, you can also pay on WeChat, like use the QR code to make payments. But WeChat, for me, you're going to mainly be using the mini programs, and then you're also going to be paying or messaging people on there directly. The mini program you'd be using like the most of the time is Didi. So you're going to go to me and then it's just use Didi there. Okay, the next one is trip.com. So trip.com, just download the app and you're going to book your flights, train travel and hotels on here while you're in China. So I find that trip.com versus booking.com, you're going to get more favorable pricing in China. When we get to flights in China, if you want to fly business, it's actually not that expensive in China versus flying, say, business domestically in Australia. And then when we talk about train travel, book train travel on trip.com too. I have tried the Chinese platforms, but the service is no better. You don't get any elevated, like you're not able to pick your seats on trains, which is quite annoying in China. So yeah, trip.com will be helpful for that. Okay, the next one, Dianping. So I mentioned that you can use Dianping inside of WeChat, but I actually recommend using the Dianping native app when you're trying to find places like exactly where you are. So when you're trying to find a place within 500 meters of where you are, I just find that the navigation on Dianping, the native app, is better. The next one, Baidu Translate. So when you're in China, to access apps like Instagram, Facebook, even if you have an eSIM, you may have intermittent coverage. So for someone that doesn't speak Chinese, even for me who speaks a little bit of Chinese, Baidu Translate instead of Google Translate is just a way more reliable version. So download Baidu Translate and that will give you everything from voice to text, or maybe you need to take a photo and translate. Would definitely recommend Baidu over Google Translate while you're in China. All right, the next one is the VPN situation. So the VPN situation at the moment in China is quite unstable, so I would recommend having 2. The first one being Astrill. I'll pop a link in this description of this video as a referral code, but Astrill is the more expensive of the 2. I think they do have a free trial though, so that might help you. It's a more stable VPN than Let's, but I do find sometimes the speeds are slower. So for me who's uploading videos on YouTube, I sometimes found that Let's was faster, but it was less reliable. So then we've got LetsVPN, and yes, you might see a lot of advice online. A lot of people were mentioning that LetsVPN was getting deprecated, but that is not the case. It still works, and it's a lot more cost effective than using Astrill. So I'd recommend having those two VPNs. VPN means virtual private network because, yeah, China blocks some of the Western apps, or a lot of the Western apps. Okay, the next one, this might be obvious, but you're going to use Apple Maps. And if you don't have a Apple phone, you're going to use Amap. So I have seen a lot of advice online saying that you need to use like one of the Chinese mapping systems. And to be honest, it's just not the case. So Apple Maps is super reliable for using Chinese public transport, but then also like walking, getting around. I wouldn't use like the TripAdvisor plugin when you're trying to search for somewhere in China. We're going to use Dianping for that. That's a bit of an overview of the China app space. So if you've got any questions, let me know. I think the biggest tip that I've got for using apps in China is first look on WeChat if there's a mini program. And yes, to use these mini programs, a lot of the time you're going to need a Chinese mobile number. The smartest thing to do here is when you land in China, for example, at Shanghai Airport, in the baggage carousel terminal, I don't know why it's there, they have mobile service providers. So I would just buy like a 30-day data package, including a mobile phone. And this just gives you like full access to China's food delivery systems, Taobao even. Taobao's like the Amazon of China. And so what you can do as you need things for your trip, you can just pre-order things on Taobao to your next hotel destination. And this will really allow you to like feel the convenience of living in China. For someone who's lived there for like over 7 months, getting back to Australia, like life is just so convenient in China. So while you're on holiday, why not lap it up? Yeah, I guess probably bonus app that I didn't mention then is Taobao, right? So in WeChat, there is JD, Jingdong, which is really good, but I find that the clothing on Taobao is better. And how I would do it, I actually have a Chinese phone that I do this on, but you can obviously do it on your iPhone. So you download Taobao, and this is what I do on my Chinese phone. I have Taobao, and then I have DeepSeek. So what you're going to do is you're going to use DeepSeek and then Taobao at the same time. And on your Western phone, you might have some issues if you're using Taobao with the VPN on. So turn the VPN off and then use DeepSeek to search terms. So for example, if I was searching for this jacket, I might think, okay, so it's cotton, it's gray, it's female, and I'll just put those like in DeepSeek. I'll say, help me search for blah, blah, blah in Chinese on Taobao, and then it will give you the Chinese search term, paste that into Taobao, and then you can go back and forth with AI screenshotting what you're going to buy. The easier way to order things more like creatine and different like protein powders would be on Jingdong. And with Jingdong, because you're using it in WeChat, you can just translate as you're searching things. But I do recommend to be searching for terms in Chinese. You're just going to get a better search result. Okay, so that was an overview of apps in China in 2026. If you've got any questions, let me know.